Hi, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Driscoll.
And I'm Jim Kerr.
And welcome to 15 Minutes of Fame. Well, Jim, we begin our journey this week with a familiar piece. It's familiar, but a little more dramatic this week. It's, a dramatic version of the same old story. What happened in NHL labor talks this week?
Well, it started out with some meetings involving a group of players and owners, and neither Gary Bettman nor Donald Fehr involved. Those talks seem to bring about a bit of some guarded optimism, we'll call it, because anyone who's been watching this thing for the last several months knows that it's been a really frustrating and boring several months here. So there was some optimism, but no one was jumping up and down just yet. It ended swiftly, though, on Thursday night with Fehr addressing the media, saying he thought they were pretty close on a number of things, and then a deal was possible. A little while later, he returned to the podium and said that he got a voicemail from the NHL, and they just flatly rejected their latest proposal and took several of their items off the table. So it was kind of a strange hour or so in that New York hotel.
Yeah, the way I saw it, even, what was happening is there was a media availability for all the players just after Donald Fehr spoke, and they're doing all this great. They're saying, "Oh, we're real close, we're real close," and then there's video of Ron Hainsey. That's his name, right? Honest to God, I don't even know who this player is. Honest to God, I know he's from the Capitals or something. Anyways, so he's there in front of all the cameras, not getting interviewed or anything, and then Steve Fehr comes down and he's got like two earbuds in and he's like holding his iPhone. It's the weirdest thing. Guy looks 150 years old. Anyways, he comes down and whispers in Hainsey's ear in front of all the cameras, and then all of a sudden all of the availabilities for the players just stop. And that's, I think, when they were saying about the voicemail. Weirdest thing I've seen yet during this whole thing. So after Fehr spoke, then said, we got the voicemail. And then Gary Bettman and Bill Daly addressed the media. And what was really the highlight about that exchange?
Oh, my goodness. Gary Bettman was clearly so rattled about how things had gone down. Guy looked like his head was going to explode. Yeah. He went on and on about the NHLPA changing its priorities every time they seemed to be closing in on something. The players would accuse the league of that the next day, saying, well, when it's not this, it's this, and then we move to you on this topic, and all of a sudden this is the issue. So he really looked upset by the whole thing. He was shaking a little bit. He was face red, just full of it was an interesting scene. I've never seen the guy like that. There's since been talk that owners have told players that having Donald Fehr in the room is a non-starter, which is pretty much the way that players and fans feel about Gary Bettman. Right. So we'll see when they talk again. I've heard that they've been talking, just no formal negotiations have been scheduled. Got to say, it's looking pretty gloomy. There are some people who think that they are close and a deal could come together in the next week or so. But they're coming to a critical point. There was a big blow up this week, and it's not looking good.
The one thing that I'm reading on Twitter, just the way it kind of seems, is like it's two-sided. Like the owners really obviously don't like Fehr, and I understand that, but not having him in the room is kind of weird. It sounds like the players got to a point with the owners where they were getting pretty close, and then the players said, "This is no problem. I'm happy we're really close, but we really can't seal a deal without Fehr." Like that's because he's the head. That's how it probably should be. He's kind of the closer, the finisher. That's kind of the main thing. And then the owners said no, and that's kind of how I figure everything kind of started unraveling. But the way that I read that is also that these owners are talking to these players, and the owners might be instilling a little fear in the players.
Fear.
Yeah,
nice.
Sorry. See how I did that? I was actually going to let it go, but anyways.
So could we call this the fear factor then?
The fear factor. Well, I think we have to. At this point. And that the owners are kind of like individually getting like almost making there be cracks in the NHLPA because they're going after and directly like targeting individual players. And I think that's what Donald Fehr is worried about is kind of losing, coming out of this PR battle looking like he's lost. And that's not the goal. But either way, it's extremely frustrating, Jim.
Yeah, it's bad. And, it seems, from our standpoint anyways, it seems like whenever they do get close on one thing, either side changes the topic to something else that's a bigger problem. and then they come close on that, and all of a sudden, problem A is now the number one problem again. And I'm not saying it's just the NHL or just the NHLPA doing it. I think both their hands are dirty on this one a little bit.
Totally.
But the fact that it's getting played out in the media like it is just, it's tough for fans, I think, and it's tough for people to really care a whole lot. It's getting hard to care, and B, I mean, it's like a slap in the face having to sit here and, how many times do I got to watch Sports Center and just see players in suits standing around?
That's right. The next time Darren Dreger tweets cautious optimism, I'm not even giving him optimism. Like, you guys can just take it, just leave it. I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
Because that's how it always is. The first day is cautious optimism. Oh, my God, we're going to get a deal. And the second day is it blows. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk a little mixed martial arts now. UFC on Fox 5 was on Saturday. Went in Seattle, which was interesting because it was on the Pacific Coast, so everything was real early. And an up-and-comer Canadian, I was going to say comedian, Canadian made a big statement, Jim.
Yeah, Rory McDonald crushed BJ Penn in a big welterweight matchup. He's seen as one of the future stars of the sport, so it was big to have him come out on top against the guy who's, he's a legend in his own right, in, a champion in 2 divisions. You don't see that very often. He called out Carlos Condit after the fight, asking for a rematch, so that'll be sweet if that happens. And in the main event, Benson Henderson beat up on Nate Diaz. I was pulling for him, but Benson Henderson is just such he was a lot bigger, stronger guy, and he worked his game plan to perfection. So that was an interesting fight too, but I was very interested to see Rory McDonald because he's a different type of guy. Like, you see interviews with him, he's a bit of a different guy. Yeah. And I like that. And the way he was talking ahead of this fight, I mean, he was saying some interesting stuff. Like, at this point in my career, I'm just collecting bodies. They were talking about BJ Penn, wanting to. He was saying before the fight, and I think he later said it was just to kind of hype things up. But he was saying that when they talk about the great welterweights, it's GSP and guys like that. And he used to be in the conversation, but people seem to leave him out now. So he wanted to get that back. So Rory McDonald said, I think BJ Penn's fighting for the wrong reasons. You shouldn't fight for somebody's opinion. I'm fighting to hurt people.
Ooh.
I like that. I like that, the rawness of that. But so to see him come out and really just dominate BJ Penn was pretty awesome. And the fight against Carlos Condit will be good because the last time they met, Rory McDonald was crushing Carlos Condit for 2 rounds. He easily won the first 2 rounds. And would have held on, if he just made it out of the 3rd round, he would have won on points for sure. But Condit knew that he had lost the first 2 rounds, so he ended up
come out. That's right.
He ended up finishing the fight in the 3rd round. So that'll be a great rematch, and that keeps if his star keeps rising. The next thing we'll be talking about is when does he fight GSP? The 2 guys, they're training partners, say they'll never fight, but I think one thing you learn is to never say never.
That's right. I mean,
so that'll be the next kind of controversial fight thing that comes up in a couple of years that everyone's talking about. That'll be the super fight.
Right. So no, I'm all about McDonald right now, and BJ Penn's nothing to laugh at. He's a great fighter.
No, so a good fighter, yeah.
To see him kind of just run right through Penn is something else. The Carlos Condit fight is going to be really good as well, but yeah, you're right. It's going to be interesting what's after that. And speaking of, and we'll tie it in with George St. Pierre, because speaking of the Diaz brothers, so Nate Diaz on Saturday night lost his fight against Benson Henderson, but there's been an interesting development with his brother Nick Diaz involving George St. Pierre.
Yeah, on Wednesday, GSP's coach was quoted as saying that the fighter had told him he wanted to fight Anderson Silva next because after his fight with Condit, he said he would take a vacation, he would talk to his people, see if the super fight's one that they want to pursue or what. That came as a bit of a surprise to hear him say Anderson Silva, or hear his coach say that, because you get the vibe from GSP that he's not all that interested in that fight. A day later, though, Dana White came out and said that GSP told him he had unfinished business with Nick Diaz, and he wanted him for the next fight. We've talked about the super fight before, but this has got to be the better fight, in terms of the welterweight division and in terms of GSP and his legacy and everything. I'm pumped to see it all come together. They were supposed to fight last year. there was the whole missing press conferences thing of Nick Diaz. Yeah, so he got taken off the fight. Then he loses a close one to Carlos Condit. Could have gone either way in that one. And Condit gets the title shot. Diaz gets suspended for a year.
For a year.
Yeah, a bit of a harsh kind of BS suspension in some ways. So he's coming off a close loss, a year suspension, because he's run his mouth and got under George's skin a little bit. He's talked his way into a title fight. I hope it all comes together. I feel for Johnny Hendricks, who has probably punched his way to becoming the number one contender. But the way it works in the fight game, it's just as much a promotion as it is anything else. And you got the fight rankings in one hand, and you got to consider what's a bigger draw. And that's a fight that they tried to make. It didn't come together. I think a lot of people want to see it. I know I really want to see it, even though I like both guys. But he'll get his title shot eventually. He'll probably fight the winner, maybe. But yeah, it's that's the way the game is played, I guess. And Nick Diaz is just as deserving, I would say, as Johnny Hendricks.
See, that's interesting. So, and here's the thing. You're a big fan of the Diaz brothers. I know you've said it on Twitter and you've said it on this show before.
Yeah.
And I can't stand them, right? Like, I absolutely can't stand them. And it's because of a couple of reasons. And one of them is, and I think we discussed this, but when the Diaz brothers are out to fight, they have to hate the other guy. There's no sportsmanship in it, right? Like, they just want to hate and literally kill the other guy. So, whereas GSP is a little bit more of a boring fighter, but he's a little bit more honorable, which I like. And so, and then with Nick Diaz, I mean, come on. Like, you talk your way out of a fight. You don't show up for the press conferences, and then you get, you're get suspended for a year for pot? Like, come on.
He's got a medical license for it in his own state. But.
Sure. But I don't know. I'm not a fan. I don't think with how hot GSP is, for me, I don't think Diaz is the right fighter for it. Yes, I think we're talking about Diaz a year and a half ago. That's what people have in their heads, and that's what I'm worried about.
That's who he is, man.
Right, and hopefully he is. Guy's
a triathlete.
Yeah,
he's going to be in good shape. He's been running triathlons the whole time.
In fact, he likes doing triathlons more than he likes fighting.
At this point. The thing about the Diaz brothers is you have to understand how they look at what they do for a living.
Yeah.
When they talk about, they think that a lot of these guys that present themselves as big role models and that are fake because you talk about sportsmanship. It's a fight, man.
Yeah,
like
that's fair enough.
In every other sport, the fight, the struggle is the metaphor that plays out or whatever. In the fight, like I think the quote from Nate Diaz the other day was, about like being friendly with other fighters. Like, you want to knock me out in front of my friends and family and take my paycheck.
Right. That's just not going to happen. No, I understand.
And I like that they're a little bit different. I kind of like where their heads are at. Yeah. They're interesting to me. But at the end of the day, never mind any of that. Nick Diaz is a hell of a fighter.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe that's what it comes down to.
He's tough as nails. He's got the, he'll challenge GSP cardio-wise. The guy's a triathlete, like we just mentioned. He's not going to run out of gas, and he'll take as much punishment. He'll give as much he can dish it out. Those guys are ferocious boxers.
They are ferocious.
And the one thing about them though is that it seems like in a lot of the fights they know they're not going to win on points a lot of the time because
it's not their style.
Their criticism of some other fighters is that some guys go out thinking about collecting points. These guys go out to brawl.
Right.
So sometimes,
and there's strategy in both, right? Like, it just depends on how you want to win.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to win, right?
That's right.
So however you got to win. But the one thing that I find with Nick Diaz is that he'll do his thing for the first few rounds, and then he'll start buying into the, throw some little leg kicks to get points mentality in the last round. But it's almost too late. I don't know. That's just something that I've picked up in a lot. I was watching a lot of fights in the lead up to Saturdays.
Yes.
To get polished. But the thing about I love those guys. Like they're so intense.
They're colorful. Absolutely. I'll give you that.
They shun the thing that they love.
Yeah.
So
real quick then, Jim, does this mean the end of the potential super fight that you were talking about between GSP and Anderson Silva?
Well, Dana White says no. He says he expects Silva to fight both St. Pierre and John Jones before his career is over, which, is probably in the next couple of years. You got to think that's great news for MMA fans. Of course, anything can happen. We've seen the number of injuries in the UFC this year alone. And, GSP's a guy coming off, 19 months of rehab. What if Anderson Silva gets a knee injury and he's out for a year?
Yeah.
Maybe he's done. But they certainly say that the plan is there, that at some point we'll see Silva Jones and maybe Silva St. Pierre. That would be insane.
That would be insane. No, I'd like to. Of course, that's what we're looking forward to. We've been talking about it for years on this show. So.
Yeah. I think you give GSP maybe a couple more years in welterweight so that he can try and clean out the division again or try and, do his thing there. And then because he says he's moving up, if he moves up in weight, he's staying up. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Give him a couple more years, get a couple, because there's some big fights to be had at 170. There's some big fights to be had.
Well, that's the thing. Welterweight is by far, I think, the best division. It's got the most guys in it right now, but maybe it's a big Rory McDonald GSP fight. Maybe that's it to end it.
Yeah, maybe that's when GSP goes up in weight.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
And then if we don't see McDonald GSP, we'll see GSP Silva.
I like it.
And of course, Rory McDonald wants to move up to middleweight at some point in his career too. He said. So maybe he'll just follow him.
I like it. Well, folks, let's move on to the GABBYs now. These are the good and bad by you. And let's start off with the good to the young Oilers, who are tearing it up in the AHL with the Oklahoma City Barons. Jordan Eberle was Player of the Month. He had 21 points in 13 games for November after Justin Schultz won it in October. But Justin Schultz won Rookie of the Month, which I don't think he's going to lose a Rookie of the Month unless the NHL comes back, with 19 points in 13 games. And get this, folks, he leads the league. He's a defenseman, remember, with 31 points in 20 games heading into December. I love watching these guys play. Of course, RNH, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins just said he's going to play for the World Juniors, for Canada in the World Junior Championships, so that means a month-ish out of the lineup in the AHL, but I don't think they're really going to lose much with having him go there. But the line of Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jordan Eberle, Justin Schultz on the back end is just looking great right now.
Yeah, and how nice is it going to be when the World Juniors are on? Some meaningful hockey to watch.
Oh, God.
Except that it's in Russia, so the times will be ridiculous.
Isn't the time like exactly 12 hours difference or something like that? Like
something silly like that.
Totally.
Yeah. It's gonna be rough, but at least we'll have some meaningful hockey to watch in a bit.
Absolutely.
A good this week to Kobe Bryant, for becoming just the 5th player in NBA history to reach the 30,000 point mark in his career, and for being the youngest player to do it at 34 years, 104 days old. That record was held by Wilt Chamberlain at 35 years and 179 days. The other 3 guys to hit 30,000 are Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, and Michael Jordan. Not too bad.
I'm a huge fan of Karl Malone. Always funny seeing him in that list. I love Karl Malone. Just always funny. Let's give a good to 15 Minute of Fame All-Star, Barcelona's Leo Messi. He scored twice on Sunday to break Gerd Muller's long-standing goal-scoring record. It was his 85th and 86th goals of the calendar years. What I love, it was like all the Twitter feeds were like, oh, Messi scores 85 and ties the record, and like 10 minutes later, basically in Twitter time, it wasn't actually, but 86 goals and he breaks the record. He does it in style. Guy's awesome.
That's an unbelievable amount of goals.
Crazy.
That's just something. And it looked like he might be out with a knee injury from a Champions League game. He kind of went down funny, and everyone's like, oh no, for a number of reasons, not just the goal scoring record, but the fact that he's probably the best player in the world.
Totally.
So for him to still be on his feet and still scoring goals, that's awesome. 86 goals.
86 goals
is ridiculous.
Totally.
Let's give a bad to another injury for the UFC. Obviously, something like mixed martial arts is prone to seeing injuries happen, but it's been a rough year for the UFC. A really rough year. This latest one is just a perfect sign of that. Tim Means, who's 18-3-1, had to pull out of his fight this weekend because he slipped in the sauna while he was weight cutting and hit his head. I'm sure Dana White is just shaking his head at this point and looking forward to maybe not injury-free, but injury less than this year, 2013.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's been a disaster
they've
for
just
them.
been getting worked.
A
Totally.
guy slipping in the sauna, not even the steam room. The
No.
sauna you should have solid footing in the sauna.
That's
It's
right.
like it's wood that's hot in there. It's not slippery.
Absolutely.
So that's a freak accident, but
Well, while we're talking fighting, let's give a bad to also frequent 15-minute of fame subject, Manny Pacquiao. He got knocked the heck out by Juan Manuel Marquez in the 6th round of their Saturday night fight. It sounds like he was having a pretty good fight until he lunged forward and got caught with a solid right hand, just absolutely solid. Guy was out, like completely out. Apparently they could barely revive him for 2.5 minutes. Just shows you that no one is invincible out there, and it probably means no super fight that we've been talking about.
yeah. And I heard this week Bob Arum or whatever said that Floyd Mayweather turned down $100 million to fight Manny Pacquiao.
I don't know why.
I mean, if you turn down $100 million,
that's it.
What sum of money will make you happy if you're not happy with $100 million for an hour's work?
Well, that's the thing. $100 million, even if I lost, like, who cares? Now I got $100 million.
Yeah, I'd stand in there. If they hate, you got to last a round.
I think I could.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I could last a round, but you got to be in there. Yeah, you got to last a round or get knocked out or whatever, but you got to go in there for $100 million. For $1 million.
Done.
Yeah. Probably irreversible damage done to various parts of this beautiful, but I mean $1 million.
Okay.
But so if he's not going to take that money, then and then now he'll say, "Oh, we just got knocked out by Marquez. I don't know. Why would I fight him? He just got knocked out.
Well, exactly.
I'll just knock him out twice."
Brutal.
So that's probably not going to happen. But what a punch, though!
What a punch!
My goodness, what a punch! Finally, a bad to the LA Lakers. Kobe Bryant told reporters that when the team went to see Lincoln, came as a bit of a shock to some of the guys when Abe got killed. Gotta love stories like that.
These guys play basketball for a living. Yes, some of them, well, most of them have college degrees, but...
Well, no, most of them have a year or two of college.
That's a good point. Well, folks, the punchline this week is an NBA team that plans to drastically change its name.
Drastically.
Yeah.
The New Orleans used to be the Jazz.
Right.
Then that team moved to Utah and for some reason kept the name Jazz.
Lots of jazzy people in Utah.
Lots of jazzy people in Utah.
That's right.
Then the Charlotte Hornets moved to New Orleans. They kept that name, but there's another change coming. After going from a non-mainstream genre of music to an annoying bug, they shouldn't have any trouble intimidating their opposition when they changed their name to the New Orleans Pelicans.
The Pelicans.
Just a big bird with a giant mouth that eats fish or something. I mean, really? I can't wait to see the logo.
I'm saying right now, the logo is a pelican with his mouth open, and the ball is in the mouth. I'm calling it right now.
That's probably it.
And it's going to be horrible.
It. That's sad.
Isn't the pelican the state bird or something like that? Is that where it comes from?
Something like that, but that's no reason.
No, agreed.
That's no reason to.
Agreed. The pelican is in no way is in no way intimidating.
What's Alberta? The Wild Rose? That's one of our provincial things. The Edmonton Wild Roses. If you pick us up without looking, we might prick your finger.
That's right.
Cause you minor discomfort.
We're very good looking though.
We'll make you think twice, and you'll want to give us to your girlfriend.
Totally.
That's it's the worst. I don't know if I can think of a worse one.
No,
that's
it's
bad.
Absolutely brutal. It's
Orleans Pelicans.
That's too bad.
How do you intimidate anything?
No.
Unless you could maybe intimidate some fish.
Yes, you could do some fish.
That's some fish would be like, "Ooh, the Pelican's coming,"
Yep.
But everyone else is like,
"Meh."
It's meh. It's a bird.
I can handle it. Unbelievable. Well, folks, that's our 15 minutes of fame up for this week. Join us again next week when we get a whole new 15 minutes of fame. In the meantime, I'm Jeffrey the Jazz Man Driscoll.
And I'm Jim the Pelican Kerr.
Have a good week, folks.
Also.